Knight f3 by Hikaru, who has 10 minutes and is in a must-win situation. A draw is fine for Ding, but he has only 7 minutes to begin, and we have some kind of an English opening. Ding Liren goes for the Queen's Gambit declined setup, and Hikaru hasn't pushed his pawn to d4. So we'll see if he does that anytime soon. Ding takes his time to understand where he wants his pieces to be. Maybe he can just play bishop e7 and yes, he plays bishop e7, and Hikaru now goes b3. Very logical. Castles and bishop b2 is normal, but he goes g3. Generally, you don't mix these two e3 and g3 moves, and this has not been played much. It feels like this is wrong because now black can push his pawn forward, and you can feel it that Hikaru has gone wrong in the opening. He now goes forward, plays his knight to a4. Maybe this is some special prep that he has, but the engine does not like it as well. In a way, the knight is sidelined, and black's pieces are excellently positioned. You can see the knight comes out. Next move, he wants to go e5. So what has Hikaru gained out of the opening? Absolutely nothing much. ED, CD played, and now he goes short castles. Well, Ding's form hasn't been spectacular here, so Hikaru can expect him to go wrong, but definitely the opening has ended in Chinese players' favor. E5, nice move there. D3 played, and now you want to build up an attack on the E5 pawn with rook E1. The knight on A4 is slightly tricky. It may not be the best piece, but it's also interesting because it has access to these squares, which could become important later on. Ding Liren plays h6. He plays this move because bishop f5. Later the bishop can sit on h7, and the g5 square is important. Hikaru tries to expand on the queen side with a3 b4, and maybe it's a good idea to stop that expansion with a5. But as we said, when a5 is played, then the b6 square starts to get a bit weak. So Hikaru might not be so unhappy with the position that he has now. He plays a5, rook e1 played, putting pressure on the e5 pawn. You want to defend it, so bishop d6 seems like the most natural move. Yes, he plays his bishop to d6. And how should white continue? Maybe aiming for b4 could be the plan with rook b1, bishop d2. But then you also have this a3 pawn which is loose. He goes h3. Bishop comes out. Pawn is pushed forward. Ooh, this is very aggressive play by Hikaru. He's just trying to attack Ding on the king side and goes g5. Wow. Takes. And well, if you play with the knight here, then I can just come back with my bishop. And if you take with the bishop, which seems most logical because then you pin here, now it's important to see what will Ding do, because his position is a picture of coordination. If you see all his pieces beautifully placed, but now in order to break the pin, he needs to move his queen, and if he moves it, his king side pawn structure gets ripped apart. Is he ready for that? Is the question here. Ding thinks for a bit right now and plays rook e8. I like this move. It is not so committal. It's a useful move. It protects e5, and later on we'll see how things pan out. c5 by Hikaru. Bishop comes back. 4 minutes for Ding. 8 minutes 37 for Hikaru. So clearly on time he's putting pressure on Ding, but on the position Ding is better here. Now one idea here can be to go knight h4. It's a useful move. Then you make way for the queen and already then look at the f5 square. So there are clearly logical ways for white to continue. Hikaru rightly taking some time because he has plenty. He goes knight b2, and his plan is to go knight c4, and I love this move by Ding. He's ready to get his pawn structure spoilt on the king side. He's not afraid. Knight h4, Hikaru is so quick. He's going queen h5 here. He's trying to intimidate Ding with speed here. f5 played by Ding Liren, and This is again a good move there. Queen comes in to h5. Now the queen, knight are here, but two pieces, maybe not so enough, but there is knight c4 coming in. Then there is a pressure on c6. There could be pressure on e5. Maybe you have f4 coming in. So yes, white has potential, but Ding's move I really like. King g7. He's just making bishop g6 possible. What a nice move here by Ding, and you can see Hikaru trying his best to spot if there are any tactics that he can get his hands on, because here if there's something that needs to exist, it has to be here. Otherwise black goes bishop g6, rook h8, and simply gets all the pieces in good squares. It doesn't seem like Hikaru has found something here. He is shaking his head. Maybe knight c4 is the move. Maybe you give a check here, but then still the bishop comes up. So that does not work. Knight c4, getting the knight into the game looks very logical. Do you want to give up your bishop for the knight? Maybe also possible. He goes knight c4, bishop comes to g6. One plan is to, if you go queen g5 now, there is bishop d8. And this is something that is not so easy to meet. So maybe Hikaru has to come back to f3, or he has to take. He takes, but now the black king is super safe. He comes back queen f3. And now, how do you continue as black? Because yes, you have great space. I like Ding's move. He centralizes another piece. He brings his rook to the center of the board. And now for white, the pressure on e5 could be something he wants to play with. Rook e2, rook e1 could be an idea. There's also an idea to play on the queen side, rook b1, b4, b5. But Hikaru doesn't even prepare it. He just goes directly b4. And he's telling Ding that I'm coming b5. Then later on your b7 pawn is weak. These are important decisions that Ding has to make with 3 minutes on the clock. And the form he has been, one could expect that he'll go wrong. He takes on b4. Now the important point to note is if you take on b7, then after rook b8 here, d3 is also loose. So that's the reason why, or you can take directly d3. Hikaru has to take care of this. Maybe the best move here is rook b1 or rook a7, trying to win this pawn on b7, and white still has good counterplay here. He goes rook b1, good move. And now Ding cannot maintain his knight here, and if the knight moves, the rook enters. So yes, there is pressure. He goes knight a6. I like this move. Knight a6 on the board, because if whatever piece takes on b7, c5 is hanging. So important here could be to play knight b6 or knight d6. These are the moves that are possible. But Hikaru, who has 6 minutes on the clock, might not be really thinking very objectively right now, because I think he has to, in his mind, he would be like, okay, I have to try and outplay Ding on time. But 3 minutes, 10 seconds is quite some time that Ding has. So one of the lines, he goes bishop, queen takes. What? Queen takes. That's knight c5 is just coming in. Did Hikaru miss something? Queen a7. Now d3 is hanging. What has Hikaru missed? Because is he going rook b7? Now Ding can get really confused here, because knight d3 is a very important pawn. It gives black these central passers. He plays knight d3, and Hikaru has miscalculated something. I don't know what it is. Maybe he wanted to go rook b7 here, but maybe he missed that there is rook e7 or even rook a8 for that matter, which is a great move. And then this is hanging here. So perhaps a very big miss by Hikaru Nakamura here, which would mean that his position has become absolutely losing here. And now he needs to first come to the grips with the situation that his position is lost, and then needs to find his chances, because Hikaru is very good at that. He's able to spot, he's able to bring himself back after he makes a mistake, but you can see that Ding, he knows he's got his chance. Also, with Hikaru's expression, one can feel more confident now. Will Ding be able to take this game to its logical conclusion? He's 2 pawns up, and these 2 pawns are this brilliant pawns in the center of the board. Look at Hikaru now. He's gotten over his mistake, it seems, and is looking to find his chances. Queen comes back to a2. That's not a happy move you make. and Ding has 2 minutes 50 seconds to figure out how to queen one of these pawns. His king is a little bit exposed on g7. Well, it's an important game for Hikaru because he was trailing Magnus by 1 point in this tournament. Knight comes to f4, attacking the bishop on g2 and also making way for the d pawn to proceed. Rook b7, pinning the bishop there. It's an important move because earlier if you played rook b7 there was bishop h2 check and you would lose the rook, but now with knight on f4 that might not be feasible. Ding very calmly plays rook e7. I like the focus with which Ding is playing here. He, sometimes too many losses make you lose the fear of losing, and I think now that's the case. Ding is no longer afraid of losing his games. He's just focused, he's completely into it. He's like, let me see what I can manage here. Queen goes to a7, trying to create pressure on the bishop. There could be some ideas with the knight e5 also. Let's see. So not so simple here for Ding. I think, yeah, he takes, that's a logical move, taking on g2. King takes g2 and he plays e3. Well, if you take fe3, then already queen comes into d5, and you can notice how this bishop and queen make it extremely difficult for the king to move anywhere. And if you play, let's say, a move like king g1, already c4 is hanging. So that's the reason why e3 is a very, very interesting and a direct move that Ding Liren has played. And now with knight e5 could be an idea here, by the way, knight e5, because if you take with the rook, rook c7, if you take with the bishop, rook d7, there is queen d5 check, but then the knight can come back. Oh, he finds it, knight e5 is on the board. But I think Ding Liren had prepared this move, queen d5 check, knight comes back to f3. Now the threat is to pick up this bishop, and we'll see what Ding plays. Because if you play rook d7, already d4 pawn is hanging here, queen takes d4, and white is back in the game. So Ding has to find the best move here, and the best move is pawn push to e2, and he finds it. What a nice move, because if rook c7, you can now take and play rook d7. Also possible, by the way, was to make a queen here. So rook c7 is impossible. e2 is a fantastic move played by Ding. And Ding is showing that even under time pressure and 1 minute 30 seconds, he is able to keep his calm, which is amazing, which is great news for the chess world, because the world champion coming back in form is definitely something that everyone's looking forward to. e2. And where will this rook go? Look at Hikaru there struggling to find his moves. He's thinking about what are the possibilities now, and because he calculates so well, he's of course not able to find any of them. And now rook d7 seems like the best move, defending your bishop. This pawn is protected. He does it, finds it. Excellent chess, threatening d3 d2. Queen comes to a6. There's no real threat as such with this move, and maybe it's time to push your pawn even further. These are some monstrous pawns that Ding has on the board. d3 is on the board. 1 minute 12 seconds for Ding. Rook b2, trying to stop this final pawn advance, and this is where pressure can be built up. Bishop e5. I like this move, attacking the rook. The rook comes in and attacks the queen. The queen moves forward here to e4. The rook comes up and attacks now the pawn on g6. With just 1 minute left, Hikaru trying to be as tricky as possible. Ding pushes the pawn, defends his pawn with the queen, and Hikaru goes rook e6. He's just trying some way to make Ding go wrong, but Ding is being very solid. He plays his queen to f5, attacks the rook and says, do you want to trade rooks? I'm happy with it. Rook e7, and everything's defended well for the time being. And Hikaru now has 1 minute and few seconds for himself. Look at Ding. He's just sitting so alert in his chair because he knows this is his chance. Rook c6 played. And now d2. Wow, that's sharp. That's sharp. Basically, if knight d2, there is rook d2, and if rook e2, there's queen. So he takes. Ding quickly makes a queen. Rook takes. Knight takes e5. But that's game over now. Rook takes e5 played, and